We are live. Let's just make sure.
Okay, yeah, I just sent out the new link on Twitter.
All right, perfect. What's up? Thank you for joining us. I'm Christian Ojakchi, and that's Nick Greeley, Turnstone capper. Today, we will be breaking down an elite slate of college hoops. Couple guys been grinding this slate, been grinding all year. We're going to be dropping insight. We're going to be dropping, a good balance of analytics, eye test, history, and vibes. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll open up the chat. Chat as much as you want. We'll take Q&A later, but we've got a 6-game slate that we're going to go through. And let's get right into it, Nick. First game that I want to talk about is this Houston, Kansas. We got 24 watches. Let's go. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Happy Saturday. All right, we got the Houston Cougars heading to Fog, taking on the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas coming off this road loss to Iowa State on a bit of a skid, and shockingly underdogs for the first time since they played Baylor a couple years ago and won that game by 12. Which side are you leaning here, Nick? Are you surprised by this line?
Yeah, so I actually played Kansas last night, plus 2.5. Not a lot of value on Kansas per se, but you kind of know that when you're betting it. I had it at plus 5, but I do think they win the game outright. Like you said, the last time they were underdogs at Allen Fieldhouse was in 2021, the Baylor, and they won by 13 outright. So yeah, I really like Kansas State in this spot. They're 11-0 at home. Houston is really good. Analytically, everyone loves them and respects them, and they're ranked first. But they have been vulnerable on the road. Like we saw, they only scored 50. They held ISU to 57 and TCU to 68, and they lost both games. So I think Kansas needs to get to like 65 here, maybe 70, and they win this game outright.
All right. Stylistically, there's a super interesting thing going on with this matchup. I wrote about this when we had Kansas playing Iowa State last weekend. Kansas is number 1 in the nation in assist rate. 69% of their buckets come off an assist, right? And then Houston, on the other end, is the most aggressive ball screen defense in the country. They're trying to blow up ball screens, be super aggressive with their bigs, try to trap you, try to turn you over, try to make your guards uncomfortable. So that's Kansas just faced that with Iowa State. And, like we were talking about, who has to handle that pressure for Kansas? It's DeJuan Harris, an extremely polished, experienced point guard, and then Hunter Dickinson, a very skilled big who not only is big for most teams to guard, but he's very big for Houston, who's got, quick, active bigs, but are more like in that 6'7" to 6'9" range, which doesn't mean they can't give Dickinson trouble if they're doubling him on the catch. But point is, you can pull Dickinson away from the basket. He can hold that ball high. He can look for Adams on high lows. He can be spraying it to shooters. And, when Houston does double, like that's the whole point of Houston's defense is they want you to beat them with the pass, not with the dribble, right? So I think KJ Adams is a really good passer at the 4 spot too. So, I think Kansas is built to handle this pressure. But then again, Houston is so good defensively, like that can't be overlooked. But to be favored going into Fog against a team like that has, is kind of searching for a big win. Like Kansas has fallen down a little bit in the national perception. Like I definitely lean Kansas, and I'm probably going to play Kansas. This line moved all the way to 3.5 at some point last night. I'm seeing it all the way down to 1 in some places, but it's hard to see Kansas like not finding a way to get this one done.
For sure. I think it's pretty funny. Like the narrative was when they went to Iowa State and lost, everyone was like, welcome to the Big 12 Houston. Mm-hmm. Like first road game they lose. And now you're going to Allen Fieldhouse, like historically best home court really in the country, let alone the Big 12. So yeah, I think it's going to be a rowdy atmosphere. Like you said, like you alluded to, Harris has kind of seen everything. He's played in the biggest atmospheres that college basketball has to offer. So he's like the point guard you want against this type of defense. Also, like you said, Dickinson, like you need a good passer out of the post, and he can stretch the floor because he can shoot jumpers from the elbow and hit threes. So they kind of have all the pieces you need and a good coach too to kind of all put it together. So.
Yeah,
and also this is actually an interesting stat. So Cryer's their leading scorer for Houston, and they rely on him heavily. Him and Sharp and Shed to create. Last year he was 5 for 14 at Kansas, 0 assists, 1 turnover. So not really a good game for him. He wasn't very efficient. So they really need him to go off today, and I don't think he will.
Yeah. So another thing with Houston, like, by the way, like I have a future on Houston. Like, I love this Houston team. Totally buying them. Like, this is just a spot where if they're if they're favored here, it's like, are they going to be favored in every game the rest of the way? Big 12 play. Like, are they going to be favored on the road in all these Big 12 spots? Like Houston is going to drop some Big 12 games as good as they are. That's just what the Big 12 is.
For sure.
And so offensively, right? Houston in that Texas game, like Shed was fantastic, but he had to do a lot. Like there were stretches in that second half where it's like if Shed's not creating, like it's not going well offensively. Like obviously Cryer's really good. Sharp can shoot the ball. Like crashing the offensive glass is where they get a lot of their offensive production. That's one thing. So let's do this. Two things that I'm a little concerned about with Kansas, even though that's still my side, is one, Dickinson's gonna have to be a monster on the glass. Dickinson's gonna have to get like 15 boards, I think, to win this game. So like a Dickinson player prop is something that I would look at for rebounds because I just think he needs to do that for Kansas to win. And then second is Johnny Furphy has really came on. Like Nick Timberlake has been a nightmare. Like he has been there was a 3-on-1 fast break against Iowa State, and he just like looked so
definitely don't want to rely on.
It looked like a freshman at varsity. Like, it looked like me as a freshman. Like I wasn't good at basketball. It looked like me like trying to, I'm like just terrified and like that's what he looked terrified.
Yeah, he has imposter syndrome really bad.
And Furphy's been coming on and shooting the ball really well. Like I think he's gonna be a really good player. But defensively, Bill Self was talking about this. Like he just kind of struggles to slide his feet a bit. And Houston's got like quick athletic dudes. So like he's a guy that they could be targeting over and over again to try to beat off the bounce and that they could get some good looks on kickouts after that. So, I obviously expect this to be a close game, but you can't tell me that even if the public's all over Kansas, you can't tell me there's not value on taking Kansas at home.
For sure. And there's no margin really in this game, in my opinion. Like Houston's 201st in the country in offensive efficiency. Like they'll never be able to pull away from Kansas, even if they sustain a lead. So I think Kansas is always hanging around. I think they find a way to win a game, just like they did versus UConn.
Cool. Chat, what do we think? Gus thinks Kansas gets it done at home today. Oh, we appreciate that. Kahan, we'll be getting to your other games later on. We've got more games. We got 3 marquee top 10 matchups today. Let's get right into the next one. Duke, Carolina. So, I mean, obviously a historically great rivalry that has had some interesting chapters these last 2 years, right? You have Carolina under Hubert Davis and Coach K's last year, who, is an up and down team, but they kind of own Duke. Like, not only do they ruin Coach K's homecoming, they go and beat them in the Final Four. Like, unbelievable. Like, the shot making from Caleb Love and what Carolina was doing in those games 2 years ago, right? And then last year, Carolina doesn't cross 57 points in either game against Duke. I went back and watched those games yesterday, or not all of them, but good portions of them. And Carolina was brutal, man. Like, Pete Nance was bad. Pete Nance was not good. Like, he was supposed to – he's like essentially what Robbie Barron is right now on Virginia Tech. And then Leaky Black is doing a nice job in the NBA right now, but he didn't really have the spacing. Caleb Love couldn't hit shit. Like, him and RJ Davis were, something with RJ Davis' girlfriend and stuff, like drama. Like, point is, Carolina is so much better now than they were last year. They've got a bad taste in their mouth from losing to Duke last year. They've got a bad taste in their mouth from losing to Georgia Tech on Tuesday. Have that players only meeting, which I kind of want you to go into a little bit more. But I'm definitely leaning Carolina here. Talk to me, Nick.
Yeah, so like you said, last year, UNC didn't eclipse 57 versus Duke. And, that's the biggest thing is like, if you're UNC, you want to play at your tempo today. Now, last season, Duke was playing slower. They were 298th in tempo, and UNC was 99th. But this season, Duke is up in tempo at 178, and UNC is at 45. But that's the biggest thing. Like, you want to dictate pace here and have more possessions for UNC. Like you said, the spot is all UNC here. You got the revenge factor setting in. You got off the loss of Georgia Tech, kind of just looking ahead to this game, which was the trap game last time out. So, it all kinds of sets up a good spot for UNC here today. Now, my one thing I will say, this is based off KenPom, this is the number one offense in Duke versus number one defense in ACC play versus UNC. And, the biggest thing is, can UNC guard them from 3? And, last game versus Georgia Tech, they held Georgia Tech to 45%, which is horrible, and they lost the game outright. Then Florida State also shot 45% from 3, and UNC won, but they didn't cover. So when teams are hitting threes versus North Carolina, they look pretty mortal. So like that's kind of like the biggest thing, and my biggest red flag, I guess, would be Duke shoots 40% from three in ACC play, which is second to Virginia Tech. So they are a good 3-point shooting team, even though it's not at a lot of volume. But that's kind of like just the biggest thing: dictating pace and running Duke off the line, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty underrated how good at 3-point shooting Duke is. Like Roach has been shooting it really well. McCain has been shooting it really well. Yeah, so that's another thing we were talking about, right? Like, is Baycott a guy that Carolina's going to throw on Mark Mitchell, sag him off a bit, or is he going to play with Filipowski? Because Filipowski is tough to guard, right? And I think Harrison Ingram can kind of get up underneath him and be physical. I think Jalen Withers can do the same thing. Like, Baycott foul trouble isn't really – he doesn't have to play these – you can throw Washington out there and stuff. Like, there's some interesting things going on there. But I don't know. I don't feel like Duke is that good at 3-point. Like, I feel like a lot of it is, like, when they're playing at Cameron and stuff, like, some teams just, like, can't guard Filipowski straight up. Like, you can't – like, they just cannot guard him one-on-one because he's a really good player, obviously. But that allows for the Proctor – it's like you're willing to live with Tyrese Proctor – shooting this three. You're willing, even though they're capable shooters, but it's like McCain's the only guy where it's like you don't want him spotting up at all. If in my opinion, like I understand this might sound crazy because Roach is shooting 47%, but it's like if he's getting downhill and they're getting easy buckets in the paint, like you'd rather them take a not as easy shot from the perimeter. Point is, Carolina's been guarding this year, and like Cadeau is so quick. Davis is so quick. Like they can keep up with those guys. Like they're a little smaller in the backcourt, but I don't know. Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram have just brought, such experience and grit.
The
role allocation
thing I will say was like it's weird, but Baycott has not been playing great. His last 3 games, he had 9 points, 5 points, 5 points, 9 rebounds, 4 rebounds, 7 rebounds. Which is like not him at all. Like he's a double guy. But I think that's kind of like irrelevant. I want to put a lot into that. I think that, like you said, he held the players meeting only after Georgia Tech. And I think he shows up today and has a big game.
Yeah. And think about it. What they have 4 days to get ready, after coming back from losing a game that you just, when you have title, anything can happen. It's a long season, but it's like when you go to Georgia Tech and lose that game, and I understand Georgia Tech's been frisky. Like they beat Duke at home too. They beat Clemson on the road. Good teams. Yeah, they step it up, but like you still can't lose that game. Like you're mad. They probably thought they deserved a 1. They thought RJ Davis got hit on that last play too. But like I just think UNC is a more complete unit. And like Duke is Duke the 7th best team in the country? Like the poll says. Like I don't think so. Like I really think it's more like who we talked about this yesterday too. Like who Duke beat non-conference? They beat a Baylor team that we'll get to today that we have some of our hesitations on. Like Baylor just straight up could not guard Duke at all. And then Duke beat Michigan State, and Michigan State was losing to everybody at the beginning of the season. And then, the ACC is – I'm an ACC guy, but the ACC is like not that good. So it's like, of course Duke's a top 2 team in the ACC, right? But Carolina, on the other hand, has been like very impressive. Like they've really brought it consistently. And on the other hand, like Duke's not as good defensively as they have been. Like this is a more offensive-minded Duke team. Like if you look back, I'm pretty sure, last year Duke was 16th defensively and Ken Palm 40th offensively. So I still think this is a good number. I think 3.5. If you're, I would play this up to 4.5, 5. Then 5 is when it starts getting a little more dicey. But in this game is always close, right? But last year Duke won both those by 5 or 6, I think, and. The Dean Dome is going to be rocking. Like the revenge fact, seriously, losing 2 to Duke last year, losing to Georgia Tech on Tuesday, and being a better team, like to me, like a clear better team. I'm on Carolina.
Yeah, clear value on the 3.5. Ken Palm has it at 6. I think Torvik 5.5. So yeah, 3.5 is where the value is. That's why I'd win as well.
What do we think, chat? Ryan thinks it's a lock. There's 41 of you. I hope y'all are playing the board today. If we're watching the show, what do you guys think? No? We'll move on. We got Tennessee, Kentucky on deck. Another top 10 matchup. Another interesting one where you're getting Kentucky coming off a loss at home in overtime and their dogs at home at Rupp. Like that's surprising. That doesn't. When does Kentucky lose 2 in a row at home? Like, as good as this Tennessee team is, are they 4.5 points better on a neutral than Kentucky? I'm not sure. So one part of the Kentucky equation is that DJ Wagner and Justin Edwards did not play in the loss to Florida. Everything I've seen is that Edwards is going to play. Wagner, it seems like he could go, but point is, Nick, like we were talking about this, what Tennessee hung their hat on, like size, physicality, offensive rebounding, like all of that. And that's not exactly what this team is. Like they obviously still really defend well. Like you look at the second defense in the country, but and they're really good on the perimeter, but Kentucky is so good at running and getting out. And this total is sky high because, Vegas knows that this pace is going to be fast and that Kentucky is going to be able to score the ball. And like, I think you said this yesterday, but like Dalton Connect could go for 35 and Kentucky can still win this game because sometimes it's like these other guards just aren't giving you much.
You never know what you're going to get outside of Necht, really. The biggest thing for Tennessee, like past few years, is like they get the march and no one can score for them. They bring in Necht who can score for them, and they're still like finding a way to lose a game. Like versus South Carolina, like just unacceptable. Really, if you have a guy going for 30, you still lose. But like you said though, Kentucky's only lost under Calipari. They've only lost twice back to back at home since 2010. Like it's just like that's insane. Like you want to talk about like Kansas's only loss, or they've never lost as an underdog at home. Like that, this is like a pretty similar stat. But what's really hard about this game is like it's Tennessee's really stout defense versus Kentucky's really stout offense. And then on the flip, it's like Kentucky's defense isn't that great, but Tennessee's offense isn't that good. So, what kind of gives in this type of game? I will say the one biggest thing for Tennessee that they have going for them is they're all upperclassmen. It's all seniors and juniors. They're a big physical team. They've been in games like this before. It's desperation mode for them right now off the loss as well. And it's a bunch of young guys and 2 seniors. So, usually I tend to lean towards Tennessee, with guys who've been here and done that. But I really like this Kentucky team. And I just think they get the job done today. They just simply outscore Tennessee.
Another interesting piece of this, like I kind of mentioned, like last year, Tennessee, like you've got Idu, you've got Plavich, and Kamwa. Like the front court was more the strength of the team, and it's like the guards are here to defend and push pace, and like if Vescovi or Ziegler or someone like wants to score the ball, and like it's a huge boost, and that's when Tennessee starts to look kind of immortal at home. But in no disrespect to South Carolina is obviously a really good team, like they've proved that, but still scoring 59 against South Carolina at home, where the only dude that joins Connect over 6 points scored is Vescovi. Like that's just not very exciting. And like, JP Estrella is the only other big really other than Jonas, and he only played 4 minutes in that game. Like they don't have that type of front court depth. Right. And you look at Kentucky, and the big Z hype train has slowed down. Cal's still kind of figuring out how much he trusts him, but he's still there. Onyenso has really come on. He had 8 blocks against Florida. He crashes the glass hard. Like he's a big body. Right. Mitchell gives you a different look playing like the small ball 5, and Bradshaw. And Aaron Bradshaw's a top 10 5-star freshman, and he's like a depth piece of this team. Like the talent with Kentucky is so high, and like obviously that's not like breaking news. It is every game, and you look at that Florida game. Why was Florida able to beat Kentucky? It's because they have guards who are that comfortable playing at that pace, and they were able to hit shots and play at that. And Tennessee and Kentucky takes care of the ball. You look at that; they have the 3rd best turnover percentage. Like it's like, is Tennessee going to be able to get easy buckets, or is Tennessee going to have to be up and down, being really good shot makers? And a guy like Vescovi or Josiah Jordan James or Ziegler is like hitting knocking down multiple threes. Like I just don't know if that happens in Kentucky. Like I think Edwards, Thiero, like are a nice big physical body to put on Connect. Like it's pretty hard to guard him, but I don't know. I think this is a game that if Tennessee scores 85 and wins in Rupp, like to give Kentucky their 2nd loss in a row, it's like hats off. Yeah. I just think there's way more outs for this to go Kentucky's way.
Yeah, I think it's all on Necht's shoulders today. Like honestly, like he has to go crazy because, like you said, Adu is I think their 2nd or 3rd leading scorer, but with Onyenso on him and Bradshaw being thrown at him, like he's definitely going to be slowed down because usually he just scores with his length and versatility, but that's kind of not his advantage today. So yeah, a lot on neck shoulders. You need Ziegler, Jordan Gainey. That's gonna be guys like that really step up today and be double-digit scores. And I don't know if they can do that. I just think Kentucky plays with the pace. They get to 80, 85, maybe even 90. Based on what the total is telling us, and they just they win the game.
And I was just complimenting Tennessee's perimeter defense. It's still really maybe Ziegler and Vescue can just really rattle the Shepherds, the Dillinghams, and the Reeves, really make them uncomfortable and make them do things they don't want to do. But I haven't seen Reed Shepherd get sped up once this entire year.
Reed Shepherd is elite, and their defense is actually better with them on the court as well. And I think we saw the last game he logged a ton of minutes, and I think you'll see that as the season goes, Kentucky will shorten their rotation, and Reed will be a close to 40-minute guy every game.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned this to you yesterday as well. Tennessee swept Kentucky. No. Kentucky swept Tennessee last year. And that was –
Tennessee was way better last year, in my opinion.
Right. Not only was Tennessee way better last year, but Kentucky was a completely different style team, with Sheway out there.
Yeah.
But, okay, Ryan wants to know if you like the over. 160 is really high. I don't think that's my angle on this game. I would honestly lean under. I wouldn't play that for sure. If there's a play on this game, I think it's definitely Kentucky. But if you want to have fun, this game could definitely be super up and down and be in the 80s and cash the over. But
yeah, I think Kentucky's 9-2, their last 11 to the over. But the books have definitely adjusted. This line's really high, and it's pretty far off the opener as well. So there's no value on this total. But if I had to bet it, I'd probably go with the over.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a fun game. I'm excited about this one. Just the whole we just went through 3 top 10 games. If you just hopped on the live now, you should be able to back it up and see what we said about these few games. But man, it's going to be a great day of hoops. For sure. In these first 3. We're leaning with these home teams. Let's get into a couple other games that Nick and I really like today. Like I said earlier in the chat, if you guys have games you want to hear what we think about, we'll get to that at the end. We have a couple more games that we picked out that we want to go through. And that next one being, the Baylor logo. My graphic design skills I'm developing. But okay, we got Iowa State at Baylor. Baylor laying 3.5. I've seen 4. Nick, I'll throw this one over to you before I get into it.
Yeah, so one thing is for sure, and that is Iowa State owns Baylor. Last year they were 3-0. The craziest thing was Iowa State only won twice, from February 18th to March 17th. So in basically one full month of basketball, they only won 2 games, and both came against Baylor by 15 and 6. So they couldn't beat anyone but Baylor. The biggest thing here for this spot is Iowa State has had a full week off the rest and prep for this game. Meanwhile, Baylor played last Saturday in 3 overtimes, so a ton of minutes. They lost. They traveled to Florida, barely beat UCF in a comeback, and now they come back home in a short turnaround. So, situationally, I think it's all Iowa State here. And the biggest thing for me is, Baylor in the non-con was lighting it up from 3. They were striping it. They were shooting around, I believe, close to 45%. They're 41% now overall, and in conference they rank 11th at 31%. So the 3-point shooting has completely fallen versus these better teams. So, that's one big warning sign. And then the second biggest warning sign for Baylor for me is their defense. Under Scott Drew in 2021, they were 22nd in the country. In 2022, they were 13th in the country overall in defensive efficiency. That number has fallen. They're 81st this year. So, they aren't really guarding anyone. They're just trying to outscore you. And when your 3-point percent is not high and you're not making shots, you can't outscore anyone. So that's why I lean Iowa State here in this game.
Real quick, let me just grab my coffee. I'll be back in 10 seconds.
Go ahead. I bet Baylor both times. Absolute personal revenge spot. Yeah, it's a big revenge spot for Baylor.
Yeah, sure. I'll throw that comment up from our guy Maxwell.
Baylor for sure has this one circle. Scott Drew is definitely telling his guys even though a lot of the guys weren't there last year, but he's still like, guys, like they sweat me last year. Like, let's come out, let's get right.
But then this connects me to an issue that sometimes I try to look in the mirror and see how can I get better as a capper, right? And something I look at is I'll use the logic for why I'm making one pick, and then with that exact data point, I'll use a different path of logic to get to the other side, if that makes sense. Like I'm using Carolina as like, Duke got them both times last year. Like Carolina is going to get revenge here, but then for this one, this is why it's different to me. I don't think this is I think this is more of a Iowa State owns Baylor situation than a Baylor is here to seek revenge. And that's because the identity of these teams is the exact same as last year. Duke, Carolina, Carolina's identity is completely different, right?
For sure.
But then what does Iowa State do that gets at Baylor? And this is what it is. One, Iowa State's not that good of an offensive team in the grand scope of things. Like obviously they can score. Like 49th isn't horrible, but in terms of if they're trying to be a title contender, a Final Four contender, like they're on the weaker side of offensive teams, like just with shooting. But that's not their strength. Their strength is on the defensive end. And Baylor is a ball screen, 3-point type of offense. And Scott Drew has found a ton of success over that. He won a national championship with it. He was number 1 in the country the year before. That team could have won it all too. But Iowa State can really guard, and they're just like Houston. They're very aggressive defending ball screens. And I shared that stat about assists per field goals made that Houston's so good at because they're trapping and they're being so aggressive in those ball screens. They're trying to get you to give the ball up. They want this ball to get out of Ray J. Dennis's hands. They want them to be taking, Jalen Bridges to be taking a 3 on a skip pass or trying to thread a pass to Misi on the roll. Like that's what Iowa State wants to do. And they've been really good at doing that against Baylor. And once again, Baylor, has a super talented one and done freshman guard from Keontae George to Jacoby Walter. And the guards are really good. But as you said, on these really good Scott Drew Baylor teams, those guards were really good defensively. Like Davion Mitchell was so good defensively. Jared Butler was solid. Teague had some size too. That's not what Baylor is. And Iowa State just is the nightmare matchup because also you've been watching these. I've been watching these Baylor games lately, and Ray J. Dennis is the guy. I love Langston Love. Walter's super talented. Jaden Nunn has been a disappointment, but Dennis is the guy that they are relying on to create late in games. And Baylor was awesome down the stretch to go get that road win at UCF last game. But and in that TCU overtime game, I think part of the reason they lost, TCU had multiple guys that were going and getting a bucket, and Baylor was like, all right, Ray J. Dennis, give me your little half spin move and make something happen off the bounce. And Iowa State's going to make that really hard for him. In the game that Iowa State won in the Big 12 tournament last year, Jalen Bridges went 7 for 8 on threes, which is crazy. They still lost the game. But what that tells me is what was Iowa State willing to give up? It's a skip pass to Jalen Bridges on the 3. We're getting the ball out of the guards' hands. And if Jalen Bridges goes 7 for 8 for threes, then we'll hand it to them. And they still won the game because Iowa State was good enough offensively because of Baylor struggles. This is my pick of the day, team. I'm in on Iowa State +4 with a sprinkle on the money line as well. I think this is my first time I backed Iowa State all year. I've been very skeptical of them because of their offense. I understand Hilton Magic and everything, and I was on Kansas last week, but Iowa State has
Magic. It travels. It travels to Waco apparently, so it travels.
I don't know. Are you as confident as me? I mean, obviously, it's a bet. How confident can you be? But this is my favorite play of the day. Is this anywhere close to that for you?
The biggest thing for me is the Lipsy Dennis matchup. That is, by far, can Lipsy guard him? Can Lipsy score for Iowa State? So a lot of weights on Lipsy's shoulders. You would think you want to take Baylor here, short home favorite versus Iowa State, but like you said, nothing has changed from the identity perspective from last year to this year for either team. I just think that Iowa State has their number. I think it's a bad matchup, and their offense is a lot better this year. So they can score with Baylor, even if Baylor, catches fire. So, I agree. I do like Iowa State a lot here.
So, you look at our beautiful visual aids that we have, and you see Iowa State is second in the country at turnover percentage and first in steal percentage, right? And obviously Baylor has got multiple guys that can handle the ball. They've got a really good backcourt, but they're still, turning the ball over. They're 120th offense, so they're in the top third, but they're not great at taking care of the ball. And as Nick was getting to earlier, Baylor being the second best 3-point shooting team in the country is fraudulent. Okay. You guys want to hear about numbers lying? Baylor knocked down 19 threes against Mississippi Valley State and was just beating up and just, it was target practice against some really shit teams early on in the season. Like if you go, this is not a live graphic, but if you go to KenPom and you toggle to conference only, Baylor is 11th in the Big 12 in conference play and 11th in 3-point shooting. And if you look at different Baylor games this year that have been close, like they go in Oklahoma State, the worst team in the league, sends them to overtime, and Baylor hits like 5 threes. And what's another one? Even in these home spots, they score 59. They score 62. They beat Cincinnati 62-59 at home, but it's not because Cincinnati's a tough, gritty team, like trying to out muscle you, out physical you, and Baylor's not able to. I haven't seen Baylor be able to impose their identity on a game like this year, right?
So they just can't guard. That's the issue. They can't guard anyone. So.
Well, they've played they guarded Cincinnati well enough to score 62, but does that say more about Baylor's defense or just Cincinnati not being that good of an offensive team? Like I just don't see Baylor just getting out to like an 11-2 run, like they hit 3-3-3 and then they score 80 points in this game. Like I just don't see this game going that way at all.
Yeah.
Fancy K thinks, I mean, I would rather play Baylor first half than Baylor game, but obviously I'm on Iowa State here, Fancy K. But yeah, if you want to take Baylor, I would recommend you take them in the first half.
Yeah, it's not a bad angle, but yeah.
All right. I see some people in the chat. We see you, Ian, Austin. We're going to be getting to those games, Jacob. But we're back to the ACC. I know most of you guys are probably Knicks guys, but if you've been following me, I had my January pick of the month whale play was for Miami to go. Oh my God, I'm sorry. This graphic's wrong. This is Virginia Tech at Miami. I apologize. Miami is favored by 3.5. That's bad. First show, we're not perfect.
First show error. That's all right.
This game is in Coral Gables. When this game was in Blacksburg, Miami was 2.5-point dogs. Hunter Couture was out, and I smashed Miami, and they won this game. Nick and I were talking about it. Lynn Kidd, Virginia Tech's big man. Miami is small ball. Like, that's nothing new. Like, Lynn Kidd, I don't think missed a shot. He was like 8 for 8 or something. When he got the ball down low, like, he scored. And Miami was – and Padula had, like, 33. So Miami was just basically daring, like, someone other than Padula and Lynn Kidd beat us. Like, if you get Lynn Kidd the ball down low, he's going to score because we don't want Norchad to get in foul trouble. And if, we're going to try to get the ball out of Padula's hands as much as possible, Padula was just pulling up and hitting everything. I don't think Padula is going to go for 30 again today. And Miami's found a little bit of front court depth with Nwako. They've realized is better than AJ Casey. Yeah. Norchad has been playing out of his mind lately. I just like this Miami team way better. What are you thinking about this matchup, Nick?
Yeah, so theoretically it is a revenge spot for Virginia Tech because they did lose at home to Miami. But what has really changed since then, other than the fact that they do get Couture back, but Miami's also fully healthy now. The biggest thing, like you said, was Padula exploded for an efficient 30+ versus Miami, and they lost. Len Kidd, 8 for 8, 16 points. He's probably going to miss a shot today, and they still lost. So, back at Miami, I think Miami gets right, honestly, here today. I just think it's a bad match for Virginia Tech. I don't think they're that good. They're kind of floating on the bubble, but so is Miami, so they're both desperate for this win. I just truly think that Miami holds home court, and Tech 1 of 4 on the road this season. So they're not a good road team.
No, that's a really good point. Also, real quick, Charlie, definitely the under in that Iowa State Baylor game. So yeah, Nick, you say a lot of good things. They're like Virginia Tech 1 and 4 in ACC on the road. Like, I'm just like kind of out on Virginia Tech. Like the ACC is very muddled in the middle, and like Mike Young's a great coach. I like Padula, Couture, and Lynn Kidd, but like you look at the surrounding pieces, and it's just weak. It just is. And like Miami is finally healthy. Matthew Cleveland's playing today. Matthew Cleveland practiced. Like Paul Jobé and Nwako, like these other guys, like they're exploring with a little bit more depth. Like if you've been following me on Twitter, you know that Keyshawn George is like my guy. Like I think he can be a first-round pick in the NBA draft. Like Bensley Joseph is like the one dude I haven't been thrilled with because he hasn't been guarding super well. Another thing Miami did last game is they were throwing George and Cleveland at Padula, which is really interesting because they were throwing that much length at it. And these other dudes like Collins and Barron, like Long, Poti, like they're not like
they can't beat
you. To take. Yeah, they're not going to beat you.
They're not good.
Yeah, I mean, Miami at home is going to be able to score the basketball today. And, like, I understand that Lynn Kidd is a mismatch on paper, but that's nothing new for Miami. Miami made an Elite Eight and Final Four with mismatches everywhere, right? It's like, oh, they're playing USC in the first round of the tournament. Like, they've got that was when they had what's his face, Evan Mobley, I'm pretty sure, right? And then Auburn has Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith. They're like mismatch. But it doesn't matter because of how connected this Miami team is, and like people are giving up on them. The computers hate them, and I'm not. Like Miami's good. Like I don't care that they're 117th defensively in KenPom. Like you see that they don't foul anyone. They foul third least in the country, and yes, it's small with Norchad, but like they're going to try to blow up the ball screens and get the ball out of the ball handler's hands. Like they're not what Houston, Iowa State is, anything in that stratosphere defensively, but it's like they have the same style. And what does that lead to? It leads to Tyler Nickel and Robbie Barron and MJ Collins having to take threes. And you live with that on the road. Like, just don't let Couture go crazy. Don't let Lynn Kidd go crazy. Don't let Padula go crazy. And Miami wins this game. So I'm on the Hurricanes here. Yeah.
It's also, as much as people want to say like it is a Virginia Tech revenge spot, Miami's coming off a loss at NC State back home. Get right spot. So, spots even out, they cancel out. Just bet on the better team here, and Miami has way more firepower. And I wouldn't be surprised if Miami wins this game by like 10, honestly.
Yeah, it is a good point about, this is extremely important. I mean, we hear like must win or how important this game is like so much, but like
that's what
Miami. Like Miami has lost 5 of their last 8, and you look at their losses. It's you lose at Wake in overtime without Wooga Poplar. You lose to Louisville, which I know looks horrible, but they were controlling that game. They didn't practice like the entire week. I know you probably shouldn't have to practice to beat Louisville, but that's what happened. Then you lose to Florida State, who was like the number 1 mismatch to them on paper. You lose at the buzzer to Syracuse without Norchad, and then you lose at NC State without Cleveland. This team is healthy. They're the better basketball team. You're going to turn this game on, and this game starts. This is an early game. Starts at noon. You're going to turn this game on. You're going to know Miami's the better basketball team. You're going to want to be on this side. So I'm on the Hurricanes.
The biggest thing here is they're fully healthy now. They got the whole team. And that's the big thing. I think that we're going to have value on them going forward is as they build chemistry and they get in this groove with their full team back. I think there's going to be a lot of value on them over February and maybe into March. So
couldn't agree anymore. And think about it. Think about the winning culture this program's had the last 2 years, right? It's like that having everyone is such a massive boost in confidence, right? This is not a team that's going to be playing fearful. Right, this is a team that's going to be extremely confident. They're going to be able to get whatever they want offensively. Nigel Pack has been playing out of his mind lately. Like he keeps getting better and better. Like Miami is a better team. Like they just gotta find a way to not let Lynn Kidd go crazy. But like I said, they're used to this spot. Also, real quick, Sam M. My dad is Tom, and I appreciate that. He is a great guy. I'm very lucky to have him as my father. That's hilarious. I don't know who you are. Message me on Twitter after the game. But okay. Another ACC game. This one's a little gross. I'm sorry. I know we went from top 10 matchups to a team with a 7-14 record, but I am all over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish today. Coming off of 5 straight losses, I am a huge Micah Shrewsbury guy. I was fading the shit out of Notre Dame earlier this year because, they lost by 20 to the Citadel and they lost to Western Carolina, who has that dude Vontaris Woolbrady, who's actually nasty, but that's neither here nor there. Notre Dame, is the worst offense in the ACC, but because of that, you see all that red on the left side of that chart. But guess what? Notre Dame guards, and it's because Micah Shrewsbury is a fantastic coach, and he says to his guys, "Hey, look, if you want to be here, if you want to play, you better guard like a fucking maniac, or you're not going to play. It's that simple." And he sent that message with his playing time. He's sat guys, he's sat some of his better players. I'm against Miami, right? Norchad Omier goes for 33 in that game, and he sat his 2 bigs for the last 10 minutes of the second half. He's like, yeah, they weren't playing hard enough. I'd rather lose with the guys. He has such control over that locker room, and Notre Dame has been really good on the road for a team that's outside the top 300 in KenPom offense. Let's look what they've done on the road in ACC play, right? They go at Georgia Tech and win in overtime. That's something that Carolina and Duke couldn't do. Go win at Georgia Tech. They go at Boston College. They lose by 4, but Quentin Post hit a late 3. Notre Dame was up for most of that second half. And then you go on the road against Virginia and you lose by 12, but you're right there, right? And that score against Virginia is 65-53. If you can get 53 against Virginia, I'd like to think you can get 60 against Pitt, right? And Pitt's coming up. I mean, we can talk about this Pitt Wake game, because I don't know if we get too rattled as that game drove me fucking crazy, but you get the point. I think this is a lot of points for Notre Dame, the way they guard, and the way that they've competed on the road. And Pitt has 8 active scholarship players. They've got a lot of guys who like to feel themselves. Bub Carrington, Blake Hinson, they're fun. But it's like, are they going to take this game seriously? Are they going to execute? Or are they going to say, we're going to shot make our way to this game? It's like, I don't know against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to get up in you. They're going to play like it's life or death because they don't beat anyone. They can't score. They're gonna defend.
For sure. Yeah. No, like you said, Notre Dame actually has good defensive numbers. It's their offense that is not great. But defensive third in ACC overall in efficiency and the number 1 2-point % defense in the ACC, which is really interesting. Which on the flip side, Pitt defense 11th in the ACC. So, defensively, it all leans towards Notre Dame. Like you said, they had a big win over Wake Forest the other night. Pitt did, but this is like the ultimate sleepy spot, especially when you have NC State on deck next game away. How much do you care about Notre Dame coming into your house today? To me, it just feels like Hinson and Carrington a get-right game. They're just going to be chucking, trying to get their numbers up. And then around the under 8 media in the second half, we're like, oh shit, this is actually a close game. We got to lock it in. I will say a big thing for the number here for 10.5, 11 for Notre Dame is they play really slow, 337th in the country. And Pitt doesn't play fast at all either. They're 276th. So the lower possessions in the game, that favors the underdog, especially when you're getting double digits. So I really like that this numbers here for a condensed game for Notre Dame.
Hell yeah. So, and yeah. Okay. I don't know if in the chat, you got 47 people in the chat. I don't know how many crazy underdog fans are out there, but every Saturday, a couple of things happen that it's like, there's no way that was going to happen, right? There's no way that's going to happen. This is my long shot underdog upset of the day. Is to Notre Dame at plus 450 on the money line to go and steal this game away from Pitt, to steal this game 64-62 at Pitt. This is so possible. Another thing, Pitt's got, like I said, we've got Carrington, they've got Hinson. Leggett played really well against Wake. I'm still mad.
He did play. I did see that. He played really well versus Wake Forest. I looked at the box score 22 officially, and I was like, wow, that is not something you see every day.
Right, but I just wait. Also, did Notre Dame play? Am I okay? Yeah, they're coming off the Virginia loss, but 5 straight losses, and I'm telling you, Micah has control over this team. They've traveled well. They've brought it defensively every single game in ACC play. And like I said earlier, Pitt has eight guys that they can play. And they don't have bigs that are going to be scoring from the post. They just have stretchy, skinny Fede Federico and Diaz Graham, who I like to call discount Chet Holmgren, but discount might not even be a strong enough word. It's just because they're shaped together. Point is, yes, Hinson and Carrington could just go be bucket getters and blow this one open early, but I just think it's way more likely that Notre Dame punches them in the mouth and competes and makes them work for it. So I think I love getting 10.5 here, and if you're feeling frisky, little sprinkle on the money line.
Honestly, yeah, like you said, if you're feeling frisky with the money line, one of the biggest things is Pitt is very Jekyll and Hyde. They take really bad shots, especially against Hinson and Carrington. Those are the best players. They will pull up from deep contested. They do not care. They rank 37th in the country in point distribution % by 3-pointers, so they rely on the 3-point so heavily. And with Notre Dame being first in 2-point defense in the ACC, we're going to see them packed in, and Pitt's just going to be spraying it. Say they're off, which they're not a great 3-point shooting team. They're 10th in the ACC in 3-point %, so not good by any means. Notre Dame will be a live dog here. So, yeah, it's a really good spot for Notre Dame, in my opinion.
Dope. All right. I see you guys in the chat. We're about to get to the games. We got one more game that we planned out, and that is this Florida. Oh, I'm sorry. I fucked up the line. It's all right, guys. I promise the graphics are going to be better. The line is Texas A&M -2. Might be 3, but
yeah, 2.5.
Okay, I completely messed up this entire graphic. I'm just going to take it down at this. Okay, no, yeah. I didn't do this graphic right at all. We're taking down this graphic. But I'm sorry. But okay, Florida, Texas A&M. Tyrese Radford got arrested, I'm pretty sure yesterday, right? Or charged. So is he going to play? We don't know. But when you look at these two teams, you got the top two offensive rebounding teams in the country, in Florida and A&M. A&M just crashes like crazy. Florida loves to run. They love to play fast. Gloaton's like the number one offensive rebounder in the country. And yeah, I backed Florida against Kentucky. They looked awesome in that game. They're comfortable at playing at that pace. Florida's been really good. This is a spot. I'll let you go in about why this is such a good spot for A&M, but I will go ahead and talk about why this spot.
Yeah, theoretically, this is like the home run spot for A&M on paper. You're getting Florida off back-to-back OT wins, and now they go on the road at Texas A&M, and A&M's had a full week off the prep for this game, off a loss to Ole Miss. So, you were definitely getting your best out of the team from Buzz Williams this whole week. The biggest thing, like you said, is like Radford did get charged, from his arrest or whatever. But, to me, like I compare this game to like when they played Kentucky, just a giant home game. Kentucky's similar to Florida from the fact that they can score the ball and play with pace. A&M won in overtime, a bit lucky, I'll say. And the biggest thing was Radford and Taylor combined for 59. And without Radford, I don't know if he's playing that or not. Buzz Williams never says a word about guys if they're in or out playing. So, we won't know until game time when the lineups come out. Another thing I will say is Coleman hasn't been 100% healthy. I don't know what's going on with him for A&M. He was a starter, logging 30 minutes a game, really being like a good second, third leading scorer for them. But he's been coming off the bench for the last month, only playing 20 minutes because of an injury he sustained. So, maybe off a full week. He's healthy now 100%, but I'm not sure. So there's a lot of question marks in this game. The biggest thing, when you're looking into the numbers, is Texas A&M crushes the glass just because, not only are they really good at that, but they're missing so many shots. So, of course, they're number one in the country. You can't make anything at all. Right. The best offense is off the rebound. The thing is, Florida is number 2 in offensive rebounding percent in the country, right behind A&M. So they're also going to get a lot of second chance points. And they have more talent. They have better players, better guards. They're big up front. Hamilton and the other 2 forward bigs. So, A&M spot, home run, but, we look into it. I think Florida's clicking. I think Florida's getting hot. I think Florida's, a team that can come on for March. I believe in them. I like Golden. I like all the players, a lot of talent. So I think Florida might just keep the ball rolling, honestly.
So this spot just, as you allude to, is just, textbook take A&M, right?
Yeah.
Textbook. They got more rest, coming off a loss.
Yep.
A close loss at home, another home game, right? Florida's coming off back-to-back overtime wins, right? Just like hangover central. You go and win at Rupp. The game before, they blew a double-digit lead late to Georgia, goes to overtime, hold on and win. But, when you have two teams who are extreme in a statistic, right? These are the top 2 offensive rebounding teams in the country. I'm pretty sure Florida is one of the top 10 fastest teams in the country. And that gives you a window to look at how this game is going to play out stylistically. And think about it. If, Wade Taylor could, of course, go for 30, but, if he's not, and if Boots Radford isn't playing, it's all on Wade Taylor and it's all on these offensive rebounds. On the other side, it's Florida has way more ways they can beat you. And if A&M is crashing so hard, what does that mean if you're crashing offensive glass that hard? You're not getting back in transition well. And A&M got burned against Florida Atlantic. I know it was a couple months ago. Florida Atlantic, I was like, ooh, A&M's got too much. I think they're going to be able to overwhelm them. I don't know. Golden gets in foul trouble. They're not going to be able to rebound. And what did Florida Atlantic do? No, they rebounded and they got out in transition. They let those guards cook. And Florida has even more juice than FAU in terms of the athleticism of those guards in the open court. Riley Kugel was a first-round projected pick, and he's coming off the bench now. And credit to Todd Golden. I think he's done a great job of getting, there's a little bit of ego that comes, right? If you're a 20-year-old kid and you're seeing your names on mock draft, but that kid, I'm watching that kid play. He's bought in. He's, he probably wants to be starting, but he's bought in, playing hard and playing the right way off the bench. Pullen has been really good, right?
Really good.
Clayton has been really good. Will Richards been really good. Belmont transfer, Florida's got guard, and then I'm talking about that backcourt and that pace and that shooting in combination with Samuel and Hangloten inside on the interior, rebounding the basketball like that. I think Florida's going to be able to do a better job on the defensive glass, right? And to run then Texas A&M is going to be able to, overcome that with just Anderson Garcia like flying and getting putback dunks and Wade Taylor just going crazy. Sure. And then you've got like the off-court distraction is real. Maybe that's something that these guys bond around, but it's like Tyrese Radford was like driving away from the cops, right? Like that's a distraction. Like, I don't know. I lean the Gators, even though this spot is screaming A&M. Just because.
Last thing I'll say is just look at how the teams are trending. Florida's won 4 in a row. A&M's 3 and 4 the last 7 with like head scratching results. Like they lost at Arkansas and they lost at Ole Miss and LSU. So look at how the teams are trending. I think Florida's getting hot. I think A&M's getting colder. I think so. Just buy a Florida stock and sell the A&M stock here. I think you go Florida.
Cool. All right, guys, that's the 7 games we wanted to go through. I'm going to throw my visual aid back up just because I think it looks good. Oh, shit. How do I? Okay, here we go. Not my bad graphic. We're going to throw it back to the OG, but okay. Chat, like show me some life. I see some games that have been talked about, but I want to make sure y'all are still here. So if there's a game you want to hear, start chatting. In the meantime, AJ, what's going on, dude? Indiana State Drake, the mid-major game of the day. 2 teams that I hope can both get into March Madness. That story from The Athletic on Josh Schertz is amazing. I really hope that you guys take the time to read that. He's probably going to be DePaul's next coach. But Indiana State offensively is, a wagon. Like what they do there is crazy. Drake beat them though by double digits at home, and now Drake's going on the road to go play Indiana State. Indiana State's laying 5.5. AJ, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously the spot, you lean Indiana State, but Drake caused some problems for them in that game. DeVries is a tough guard for them, and my man Darnell Brody is a load. He's a big boy, and that makes it Robbie have to work way harder on the defensive end. I sneaky would lean Drake in this spot, even though Indiana State is the right play to get revenge at home. But the spot tax is real, and this line should probably be closer to 3.5. It's 5.5. I would take the points with Drake. I would think Indiana State wins it outright. But what do you think, Nick?
So this is a good mid-major game that I actually have my eye on. I watched the first time they played. Drake, Indiana State's big. Avila, he's very good, very underrated. He was in bad foul trouble, barely played the game, which was a big reason why Drake had success in that game. And DeVries was a really good, versatile player at this level, and he just was creating one-on-one. I will say he has a shoulder injury, and he didn't look great last game, and I'm not sure how close to 100% he'll be today. You factor that in with the revenge spot and how good Indiana State really is. Like, this is one of the best offenses in the country. Just 1 through 6, like everyone can score the ball from everyone on the court. Spacing is elite. Schertz is a great head coach who will probably go to high major next season somewhere. So, even though the number is pretty big, I still lean Indiana State here, but I think they're a great money line parlay option as well.
Wait, I didn't know about DeVries. You said his shoulder?
Yeah, so his shoulder, he hurt it in the last game, and
he's been dealing with the shoulder since December, I see.
Yeah, it's been an issue, but apparently it flared back up last game. So
that's an important data point, AJ.
If he doesn't go, for sure, I probably will bet Indiana State straight. So hold on 1 second. I'm gonna check the shoulder. You can go to the next one.
All right, the chat is popping. I love it. Real quick, what's up, Eric? Wake is laying 8.5 against Syracuse today, and dude, I'm a little scared that Judah is going to be able to do what he wants against our the way we're guarding ball screens. But we've been really good at home, and there's no way I'm about to get on here live and say that Wake's not going to win this game. So have fun watching. Wake is a size advantage in that game too, which is crazy. Syracuse is. I know, Nick. You got Wake to win this one straight up, right?
Yeah. Wake, San Diego State is my favorite money line parlay today, around minus 115, minus 120 odds. So not a lot of dig there. I love it. I think Wake back home finally. They've only played 1 game in the last week and a half, and it was the loss at Pitt. Back home, they've been great at home the whole season. They haven't lost 1 game all season at home. If you look at Cuse, if you go through Ken Palm, if Cuse wins this game, which I don't think they will, but if they do, it'd be their best win to date analytically, ranking wise. I don't see it. I think Wake Forest covers. They have size down low with McLeod out for Syracuse. Like you said, you got to stop Judah, and that's really the only thing there is to Syracuse, is stopping Judah and guarding shooters. So yeah, I think Wake wins. I think they cover as well, but yeah, I just money line parlay and we'll say Diego State.
Yeah, also JJ Starling and Judah Mintz are not 3-point shooters, and they were chucking it last game. They took 17 combined, which is kind of crazy. And if teams are willing to give that up and they're going to take it, that's the way you want to beat them. Kai Muskie, Twitter legend, what's good, dude? Love this kid from Xavier. Xavier DePaul thoughts. I think DePaul blows him out, honestly. That team is really hitting their stride lately. No, I don't even know what this line is. I'm sorry. Like, it's just such a loaded Saturday slate, dude. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to. I don't think I'm going to be able to.
Yeah, I didn't cap this game. Honestly, I don't cap any of the Paul games. It's either if you fade them or nothing. But
Kai Muskie, what's the line?
I saw 15 on KenPom.
13 and a half. I mean, obviously, I would take Xavier. Like, Xavier's going to score 100 points. Like, it's going to be ugly.
Dude, did you see the end of the Paul last game when the dude got the rebound and just threw it out of bounds?
Yeah, it was so bad. It was like
27. Bro, that is so DePaul. Like, that is just the say of the program, bro. Like, they got to get a new coach in there. Shirts from Indiana State. But
yeah, that's a layup of higher. That dude, like, I'm going to bump it again. Yeah. Please read the story on The Athletic about Josh Shirts, guys. It is crazy. Kai Muskie, thanks for joining us. And hopefully we didn't jinx you. I mean, that wouldn't be on us if Xavier was. Another one, this is Ryan Kuzer. What's good, dude? Auburn, Ole Miss. This is one I was really close to playing. Auburn smoked Ole Miss in that first game. We've seen in some matchups this season, like teams that have an easy win in that first game that, the other team really has something to say about it. The one that stands out is Illinois Northwestern. Illinois smokes Northwestern at home without Shannon. Shannon comes back. They go to Northwestern and boo time, the boo zone. Bowie gets it done in overtime. So, Chris Beard's a hell of a coach, and, you expect Ole Miss to fight better at home. Like, they've been really good at home, but I think Auburn's a really tough matchup for them. I think Auburn's a much better team, and they didn't just own that because they didn't smoke them by 30 because they got lucky. It's because, what they were able to do with their depth and defensively, I think really threw Ole Miss off. You'd expect Ole Miss to shoot the ball better at home. But I would definitely lean the points with Auburn. Like, Auburn laying 5 here, like, it's pretty telling.
I think it's a horrible matchup. Is this a Q1 game, I wonder? Because they have not won a Q1 game of their own.
Yeah. It's a Q1 game.
It's Q1. So I do think they finally, get off the schneid. I think they get their first Q1 game win today. I just think it's an overall bad matchup. Like, Auburn's very athletic, a lot of big bodies, a lot of guards, a lot of depth. Ole Miss is just going to have to rely on, like, a lot of threes to go in. Hard game, like off the Miss State win. Now, quick bounce back versus Auburn, and Auburn team looking for a Q1 game win. I just think Auburn wins again. I think they roll them like they did the first time, honestly.
All right, a couple of these real quick. What's up, Patrick? Yeah, Memphis is totally falling apart. I don't know much about Wichita. I haven't really watched them other than that game against Kansas. I am afraid against a team like this that it's the same thing with Arkansas, right? You're like, this team is falling apart. Just fade them. And then all of a sudden comes a spot where they play really well. And last time Memphis lost 4 in a row, they came back and beat Alabama when they were ranked 6th in the country. I think that was a year or two ago. I really like Memphis, and let me rephrase that. I still want to believe in Memphis because the way they were playing early on in the season, like they look super dangerous to me. But, the chemistry thing is real. Like, those internal issues are 100% there. Like, Penny's been open about it. But, they're still a team that can break a game open because they're that much more talented. So I would lean Wichita. I wouldn't recommend taking Memphis, but just don't be surprised if this is the game that Memphis bounces back. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, if you're betting Memphis, you're kind of like catching a falling knife here and hoping you don't get cut. Like, you just can't bet on them right now. There's so many issues. I did watch the first game when they played Wichita, and Wichita scored at will. They just couldn't get a stop. 10.5. It opened like 12, I think, so money's on Wichita. I lean with the early money. I'd go Wichita if I had to bet it.
All right. Julian Cheek, what's up, man? South Carolina just won at Tennessee. Seems odds. Their dogs say at Georgia. Thought so. Julian, welcome to college basketball, right? If you're box score watching, if you're score watching, that's not how the market is being dictated at all, right? Like, there's something that we like to call the spot tax, which is teams at home in a good spot. In that spot for Georgia is you just blew one to Alabama, right? You had that game at Alabama. You're up at double digits at half, and then you let that loss marinate for a couple of days. And South Carolina is coming off the high, right? The high of winning at Tennessee. They just beat Kentucky the other week. It's like unless you think South Carolina is a wagon that's just going to keep churning out WWWW, which I know they've done, right? I know they've done that, but they're dogs today because this is a spot for Georgia to get the win, and because the computers and the whole conception of what South Carolina has been, as long as that, I understand that's evolving, that this team actually is pretty good. It's better than how they're ranked, how they're perceived. But the market thinks Georgia's right on par with them, and at home, coming off that loss to Alabama, like this is a spot that you'd want to start to fade the Gamecocks. But like I said, maybe they are a wagon. Maybe they are going to go in. But I just want you to understand, Julian, that that's why this line is what it is.
I think the analytics are like off on, like Ken Palm's usually off when it's a battle of major historically, but they're having a great season this year. So like the market, he doesn't really adjust like till later on. So that's why they're dogs today. But I will say I haven't gotten a USC game right like all year. I didn't think they were good, and I don't know how they're winning. They beat Tennessee, so they're obviously good. I will say it's a USC revenge game. Like they actually lost to Georgia at home, which was crazy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I do think USC wins this game. I think they keep the momentum rolling. Georgia 1-3 their last 4. Just some heartbreaking losses mixed in between there. Like up big against Alabama, blew it. Lost in OT to Florida, blew it. So mentally, I don't know where they're gonna be at today. If I had to bet, I'd probably go USC, but it's a pass for me.
Yeah, it's basically a pick 'em. 1.5 right now for Georgia. But yeah, Julian, if you're surprised that at this line it's like that's just what this year has been. The market has over adjusted, maybe not over adjusted, maybe perfectly adjusted, but they know that the sharp money wants to back the home teams in these spots because if you look at the data, like home teams have been really good, like as dogs and in these similar ranked matchups. But if you really think South Carolina is that team and you think they're really good, like it's a great spot to back them against a team they lost to earlier, and you don't have to lay points on the road. So get in on the Gamecocks if you're about it. Real quick, Andy, I've been really looked into player props today, but off the top of my head, something that I circled was Hunter Dickinson's rebounds today, just because I think they need him to rebound. It's at 10 flat. I think he gets double-digit rebounds today against Houston. And then that's definitely the one that stands out. I've been mostly focused on spreads today. I don't know, Nick, if you have any that you've looked at.
Yeah, nothing player props. So let's just hammer a few of these other questions.
Yeah, okay.
Real quick.
Well, this is the big game we haven't talked about yet. Fancy K, what's going on? UConn St. John's. There's been some buzz about Pitino, beef between Pitino and Hurley and St. John's UConn fans about Pitino not wanting to play this game at MSG next year, wanting to play it on Carnesca. But, it is at MSG, and there's going to be UConn fans there, and UConn's fan base is absolutely juiced.
It's going to be 50-50, split.
It's going to be 50-50, yeah. And if it's going to be – it could be more – the UConn fans could be louder. But you look at St. John's. They've lost 4 of 5. Nick and I were talking about this yesterday. Yes, St. John's lost 4 or 5, and people you can look at them and say, who have they beaten? But just a little bit of context, right? Why is St. John's lost 4? They lost 5. They lose by 1 at Creighton. They're 7.5-point dogs in that game. They were right in that late. I'm pretty sure they had a lead late in the second half. And there was a controversial call whether they got fouled. They lose that game by 1. You lose by 15 at Seton Hall without Pitino. And when you surrender a 30-0 run, that's just something that I want to just wash out. Like St. John's without Pitino is not a thing that exists anymore. You lose by 1 at Marquette, at home to Marquette. Marquette's really good. It's a tough one. You're right there. I'm not saying St. John's is in that top tier of the Big East, but they're really good. And they've owned Villanova. They've beaten the people they were supposed to beat. They lost their last game at Xavier. But this is a huge spot for them. I understand that it's not your typical home game because of this whole UConn piece with their fans playing at MSG, but this is still a spot where St. John's can make themselves a tournament team. Like they have Pitino, and they played really well against UConn. At UConn as 11.5-point dogs, they lost by 4, and there's a tie game late, and Chris Ledlum decided not to make free throws. But Donovan Clingan doesn't play in that game, and it's like, how much does that matter? The other piece of this, Nick, before I let you go, is that St. John's was the one who drove UConn to their low point last year. St. John's went into Gamble, or it might have been the XL Center, and St. John's crushed UConn last year. They won by double digits, and that was UConn's kind of rock bottom moment. And Soriano 8 in that game. Clingan only played 9 minutes. Of course, that was a different situation last year, but I expect St. John's to bring their A game. I think they can match up well with UConn, even with Clingan, but UConn's a wagon, 3.5. You don't feel great about taking those points.
Yeah, that's a good question. I just saw someone say, is Carabin playing? And I don't know if he's playing. I don't think he's going to be 100% if he does play. I think
that is a huge aspect of this.
If he's out, I really like St. John's actually because he's a huge piece. Even if you don't think so, he is. But yeah, I think UConn to me,
He's warming up. He's warming up. Caravan's warming up.
Nice. Yeah, I mean UConn is extremely hard to fade in my opinion. They just are so good, man. St. John's needs a huge win, and there's not a bigger win on the rest of their schedule than this game right here. Like you have to get this. I'd probably win St. John's, but I just have a hard time fading UConn.
Yeah, hard time fading UConn, but this is the spot for St. John's to get that marquee win. And is UConn going to just keep beating everyone? This is just a tough game for me to read. I stay away. I don't have a strong enough read on it, but never want to recommend going against UConn. But if they're going to lose one of these games, like if you look at their upcoming schedule, they're not going to lose. They got a Butler at home, and then they're Georgetown DePaul. UConn could easily be 23-2 if they win this one today, and that's fitting if they're the best team in the country. But like I said, it's Pitino, lost 4 or 5, and they played them well last time, so wouldn't be surprised if St. John's pulls out either. Sure. Ian, Texas TCU. I'm a TCU guy. Love this team. I think they can make a Final Four. Texas, I thought people were hating on a little too much earlier in the season. Like you've got Asmuth, you got Dessou, and Rodney Terry. Definitely not sold on him. TCU laying, I think it's 5.5 here, which is a little rich for me, which is why I'm staying away. But definitely lean TCU because I just love this team and I think they're better. And
pure number, I like Texas. I do think this is like the peak of TCU hype right now, winning 3 in a row, and you're getting a good price on Texas losing twice in a row. So pure number, I lean Texas, but long term, I like TCU just as much as you do. I think they have a high ceiling. So yeah, I'd lean Texas if I played it.
Shout out Micah Peavy. I think he's
very good. He's very underrated. He's developed his game like a ton since I believe he was at Texas Tech. So.
K-On, Bama, Mississippi State. I haven't looked into this game that much, but Bama beat them at Mississippi State last time. You're at home. Let me see what the number is.
It was like a pick 'em line, and I think they won by double digits.
They did, yeah, or at least 8. Alabama's laying 8.5. I lean Bama. Mississippi State's one of those teams that really good at home, not as good on the road. And then it's like when it comes time to make the tournament or not, do they have enough on their resume, or they just, how much can the home wins win? But like they took care of Tennessee and Auburn at home. So those are 2 pretty freaking big wins. To go on the road though, and to keep up with Alabama offensively, I just think it's tough for them. Alabama's so good. Like that's Alabama was the poster boy of Ken Palm this year, right? Like ranked 10th when they were like 8-5 or something. And it's because the offense is that good, and because they had a crazy tough strength of schedule. Like you go at Creighton, you play Purdue, play Arizona. Like they had a gauntlet of a schedule. Like they lost to Ohio State when Ohio State was playing better. They lost to Clemson when Clemson was playing better. So the computers aren't fooled. They know Alabama's really good. This kid Josh Hubbard on Mississippi State is a dude. He's been playing out of his mind lately. He's one of the most underrated freshmen in the country. But like I said, I think it's way more likely that Bama breaks this one open with their offense than Mississippi State's able to muck this game up.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think Mississippi State will play at their pace. I think, they'll have to score to stay in this game. Number felt a little bit big, especially, there's a little bit of revenge for Miss State, but tough, sharp number. Analytics, they love Alabama, so you're never really going to get value on them.
Right. That's a really good point. I remember Alabama was playing South Carolina when South Carolina had lost like once or twice and was laying like 12.5, and they were down at halftime and won by like 20. That's what Alabama can do to you.
Alabama is like they can absolutely go, or they can absolutely stink it up, like just how NATO's teams kind of are. So tough game.
Kanye, we're going to be wrapping up soon, and then we'll catch you up. We'll give a little recap. All right. Gus, appreciate you. You've been here the whole time. Thank you. Kansas State at Oklahoma State. We were talking about this one. Kind of gross. Better ways to be spending your time than watching this game today. Sure. But Oklahoma State, if they're going to they're going to get a Big 12 dub, it's today. They've already gotten one, but I know Nick's on Kansas State, but dude, Kansas State is pretty gross offensively. Like it's the Jerome Tang experience, and it can punk you at home, but on the road, maybe they are that much better than Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma State played TCU well at home. Like they played Baylor well at home. I wouldn't feel confident about backing Kansas State, although it's not pushing me onto Oklahoma State. Tell me why Jerome Tang is going to work today.
Man, it's got to be Kansas State or nothing. Like for me, I just think they have so much more talent than Oklahoma State. They played already. They beat them by 4 at home. In that game, Kansas State was 65% inside the paint from 2. I don't know, man. Both teams are bad. Not a good second year for Jerome Tang under Kansas State, but I still believe in them enough, and I'm done with Oklahoma State. So I lean Kansas State. But, when you have issues, you never want to sort those issues out on the road, especially in the Big 12 where everyone is pretty competitive. So pass for me, lean Kansas State.
Dope. All right, looks like we got
we'll answer like 1-2 more and then wrap it up.
Yeah, 1 or 2 more. I can't find the comment. Oh, here it is. What's up, Caden? St. Mary's Gonzaga tonight. Gonzaga's laying 4.5. Gonzaga always beats St. Mary's at home, it feels like.
Yeah, they do own them. Like they're like 8-2 head-to-head last 10. It's probably even worse if you go past that. So I like Gonzaga a lot. Actually, I'm pretty high on St. Mary's too. Like they're playing really well now. Like they're really good. I had this game circled as a live bet. I don't want to lay the 4.5, 5. I want to bet Gonzaga like a pick 'em, and I think we can get that. If you look, even their last game, like St. Mary's strong starters, and they just like melt in the second half. Like I don't know what happens. They've done it a lot this season, and it's happened a lot in big games. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, and especially because Gonzaga has a lot of new guys. Like they have, I think, like 3 freshmen in the rotation. Might take them a minute to get used to, the St. Mary's personnel and style of how they play. And that's when they're down a few points. Like that's when I want to bet Gonzaga. So because I do think Gonzaga wins the game ultimately. I think they split the home and home, and then the neutral court game could be huge in the WCC tournament because whoever wins, will get in the tournament, and the one who loses might not because they're both kind of like bubblish teams. So
it's crazy they're both bubblish teams that honestly I think they're both going to get in to the tournament. I think they're just going to both keep taking care of business, and
for sure.
you don't have BYU in this conference anymore, which definitely changes things.
Sure.
San Francisco exists, but Santa Clara exists, but like
San Fran can't touch either of them. Yeah.
Interesting note on St. Mary's, Marciulionis went for 20 and 25 his last 2 games, like which is kind of out of nowhere. Like he's been a solid player, like fundamental dude, but like the shot hasn't super been there, but he's really come on. Which has been a nice. I think they really missed what's his face. Was it Logan, number 0?
Yeah, he was so good. Bro.
Logan Johnson. Logan Johnson.
He's a good guard, buddy. He was so good, man.
And as good as Mahaney is, like Mahaney was a little bit more of an off guard last year, right? It's like he didn't have to run the offense, and I think Marciulionis emerging is big. I think that's a big reason why they're playing better. Then Gonzaga. Let me say this about Gonzaga. I was very anti-Gonzaga at the beginning of the year, so I had futures on them. Steel Vendors goes down. I cry for a couple days. And then I'm like, this team's not good. Like Dusty Stromer is not good enough to be starting on a team that's supposed to be top 10, like or top 25. Like it's just not. What do I really like about Gonzaga now that changed from 4? 1, I've been a Nolan Hickman hater. I don't think he's good. He's been playing very well lately. He has really come on and stepped up and been shooting the ball better, which completely changes the outlook of this team to have another guard that can shoot like that when you don't have Venters and when Nembhard isn't really taking that many threes. The second piece is Ben Gregg starting over Dusty Stromer. Ben Gregg has just been kind of floating around Gonzaga for a while. You watch this dude play. He's pretty good. He's way better than he's gotten credit for, and he's got a really nice looking 3-point shot. He spaces you out. That makes it. What is this reminding me of? We talked about this like a month ago. It reminds me of Sabonis Wiltshire, right? Ike Sabonis and Ben Gregg is Wiltshire, and they're gonna sneak in and be a 10 seed that no one is gonna want to play.
For sure. I love the bet that in like the playing game or something. It'd be a big play for me. So
I would think Gonzaga, but I like Nick's idea of instead of the 4.5 to see if you can get on a live spot.
Yeah, I'd try to live bet it, honestly.
All right. I think that's all we're gonna do for games real quick. Oh, sorry, Jacob. Northwestern, who are they playing?
At Minnesota. This is a good game.
Okay.
Respect Big Ten home court. But Minnesota, I do not like Minnesota at all. Personally, I like to fade them, but tough game for Northwestern. Off an OT loss at Purdue, your coach gets tossed in the game, quick turnaround. Now on the road at Minnesota, it's a tough spot, and the line sets up, Minnesota for sure. I love Bowie. I love Northwestern. I hate Minnesota, but if I had to bet, I'd probably do Minnesota.
Yeah, this screams stay away to me. It's kind of similar to Northwestern's kind of similar to South Carolina right now. I know they've lost to Purdue, but it's like they're playing really well right now. And it's like, why is this the line? Like, it doesn't make sense. But it's because it's hard to win on the road in the Big Ten, right? And Minnesota's not bad. But also, crazy stat about Northwestern, they're shooting 44% from deep in the month of January. Like, they've been lighting it up. They've been playing really well.
I think they just have shooters. Like, usually you'd want to fade that. Like, think that there's going to be some regression, but, I just think they have shooters, man.
Yeah, Ty Berry can shoot it. He kind of looks like Patrick Mahomes, but I don't know if that's weird. He kind of reminds me of Patrick Mahomes. Langford can shoot that thing, and then some of these other guys have been shooting well too. Oh, okay, fine, Ryan. Clemson, Virginia. Dude, I made a pledge to not take Clemson again after they burned me 3 times in a row. But like Virginia, like in a very large sample size, was bad on the road, and then they like been a little bit better on the road. But who did they beat? Like Georgia Tech and somebody else.
Bro, Clemson's got issues, bro. They barely beat Louisville. They were up like 20.
No, Clemson has completely tanked, completely on Brad Brownell. He does this every year every time at this time of year. I'm not taking. I made a promise to myself that I was done with Clemson. Like, if you lose 3 times in a row and I back you, like, I'm off you. But I would not recommend taking Virginia because they can lay an egg on the road.
Road Virginia is you do not know what you're gonna get out of them. This game's like screams pass. Like, do not bet the game. Just don't. Like, I couldn't tell you what happens in it.
Luke, we talked about it briefly earlier. Also, Luke, you make videos, I think, right? You're a good kid. I like you. Go Wake. But yeah, dude, Wake's laying 8.5. I definitely wouldn't want to touch that. We definitely think Wake gets it done. Mins can cause some problems. But Hildreth's wrist has impacted things. Boopy has been a different player at home, so like I would like to see him get bounced back today. But it's been frustrating watching how Wake has kind of collapsed in these second halves, and I understand now we're at home and this is the bounce back spot, but 8.5 is pretty rich. I feel confident that we're going to get this done, but that's the thing. Like, I'm not even excited if Wake wins this game because if you're anything close to the team I thought you were, it's like then you beat Syracuse at home. Like next question, right? Like, you're favored by 8.5. You have to win this game. And I think that they do, but I'm a little scared about what Mintz can do because when we've been playing this drop coverage, like guards have been getting to the rack, and like that's kind of the whole point is to make them score over the top of you. But look what Bub Carrington just did. Look what Cadeau and Davis just did. Look what's happened in some of the other games earlier this year. So definitely we feel that Wake gets this done, but 8.5 pass.
Yeah. Just real quick, quick recap. For anyone who's just like tuning in for Q&A or whatever, if you missed the beginning of the show, I personally played Kansas plus 2.5. I think they went out right, and I played San Diego State moneyline parlay with Wake Forest minus 115. So that's my 2 plays, both a unit and a half. So yeah, what did you end up playing, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm going to post these all on Twitter, but I've got Kansas, I've got Carolina, I've got Kentucky, I've got Iowa State, and that's my pick of the day. I've got Miami. That game's in Coral Gables. I'm sorry, it's a bad graphic. I've got Notre Dame, and I really like Notre Dame. And then this graphic's also wrong. I'm sorry. It's gonna be better. And I like Florida. And then I also like Florida State against Louisville. Florida State being disrespected. That line's 5. And at the end of the day, Louisville. We look at Arkansas or Memphis as like kind of internal teams to fade. Like Louisville is a constant mess. Like anytime I can get a chance on a decent line to fade Louisville, like I'm all over that. So I'll be posting these plays on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our first show. I think that was really well, Nick. Thank you for taking the time, guys, to join us. You're going to get top quality content when you come with us. Like we're true sickos who understand the game, who know these teams really well. You're not encountering dudes who are talking about teams that they're not grinding on. They don't know their stuff. So, thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate the support, and hopefully we'll see you next Saturday morning, right?
Yep, for sure. Next Saturday, guys.
All right, take care, guys. Enjoy the hoops.